Good early evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the studentloanjustice.org live stream. This is actually more the Collinge for President live stream. Well, it's kind of both. I'm running for president. I will cancel all student loans. I will return bankruptcy rights to all student loans. Actually, I will cancel all federal student loans, return bankruptcy to all student loans. Suffice it to say, if you have student loans, or if you know anyone with student loans, tell them to come to collingeforpresident.com and help my campaign. Whatever your political stripes, whether you're left, right, or neither, right now is when we have leverage, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to push both parties. We've got to make a dent, and supporting my campaign is how that's going to happen. So I'm going to keep tonight's live stream rather short, ladies and gentlemen. We just published an article about Project 2025, and maybe I'll just share my screen with you, take you through it very quickly. Project 2025 is indeed a nightmare. A lot of people are talking about it right now, and certainly I haven't looked at the whole document, but I have looked at student loans very carefully, and I can tell you, Project 2025 is a nightmare wish list from the student loan industry. What it is, first and foremost, is an attempt by the private banks to redirect $100 billion a year that accrues in interest. And currently, that $100 billion accrues to the federal government, to the taxpayers. The private banks want that $100 billion a year for themselves. They want to go back to the bad old days when banks made the loans, federal government guaranteed the loans, and the loans remain weaponized. That is, stripped of nearly all consumer protections. So the banks were given a license to steal back in the bad old days, and the government was sitting there shoveling money at them, reimbursing them fully in the case of student loan defaults. And so they had carte blanche. They had license to steal. They had free reign to abuse us, hyperinflate our loans. We have no recourse. And at the end of the day, if we throw up our hands and fall into default, they would get paid full book value. That's what they want, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing conservative about that, by the way. The Republicans scream and shout and cry and wail about how student loan cancellation is a cost to the taxpayers. Well, if they got done what they wanted to get done, the cost to the taxpayers would be $100 billion a year. And that would all go directly into the pockets of these people, the Heritage Foundation, the banks, the Sallie Maes, the Navians, the Nelnets, all those guys. So make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, it is a bald-faced, shameless attempt to rob the taxpayers and also keep the loans not only as bad as they've ever been, but actually worse. So let me just go down. If you're watching my screen, you can see a few key quotes from that. Here's the first quote about returning back to the bad old days where the government was the guarantor, private banks were the lender. I've already explained that. But also, second quote, the new administration must end the prior administration's abuse of the agency's payment pause and HEA loan forgiveness programs, including borrower defense to repayment, closed school discharge, and public service loan forgiveness. So I don't know if you guys remember, but on Donald Trump's watch, almost no loans were discharged for people whose schools closed. People had been lied to their schools and applied for the borrower defense to repayment. I think the last I checked under Trump, I think less than 15 people or something like that. A tiny number of people got their loans canceled through public service loan forgiveness. So this is their attempt. They would like to end all of those things. So that was a key quote. Another key quote, the new administration should urge the Congress to amend the Higher Education Act to abrogate or substantially reduce the power of the Secretary to cancel, compromise, discharge, or forgive the principal balances of Title IV student loans, as well as to modify it in any material way, the repayment amounts or terms of the loans. This is probably the most dangerous thing about Project 2025. You know, we found many years ago that the Higher Education Act, and if you look, let me scroll down just a little bit. The Higher Education Act gives the president full, broad authority to waive, compromise, release all federally owned student loans. So these people want to kill the law that's been in place since not only 1965, but even going back to the 1958 original language that set up a commissioner for higher education under the National Defense Student Loan Program. Anyways, the long and the short of it is, guys, the Republicans absolutely want to kill the secretary's ability to cancel student loans administratively. You know, this was the basis for our petition in 2020 that started the whole thing about student loan cancellation by executive order. This group, I kid you not, we started that whole thing many, many, many months before Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer started calling for it. We started our petition, and it was only when our petition was up to 750,000 signatures or so that the politicians grabbed a hold of it. And by the way, we're no fans of the Democrats, guys. The Democrats wrecked our idea, in my humble opinion. So yeah, Project 2025 would do all of those things. It would kill all the existing income-driven repayment plans, which suck in the first place. By the way, they are all cruel jokes in the first place because the vast majority of people who try for them get disqualified out of them. But Project 2025 would get rid of all of them and replace it with a new plan, which is just another failed IDR plan. I'm not even going to describe it. It's worse than the existing loan plan, IDR plans. All the IDR plans are cruel jokes, ladies and gentlemen. And then there's one last tiny part that I thought was quite relevant for student loan borrowers, and that is language in this Project 2025, which would, you can see where my mouse is, switch to fair value accounting. And I'm not even going to spend more than about 20 seconds describing that. It's just a weird, obscure thing. It's an accounting trick that allows the private banks to falsely value the federal student loan portfolio based on private student loan market rates. So that's a long way of saying that the banks want this because it allows them to make the federal student loan program appear to be very, very, very expensive, when in fact the opposite is true. The Department of Education, as I said, is making $100 billion a year in interest, and there's almost no way that you can hide that. But yeah, these people, they're just playing little weird accounting games. You can read the article, and you can see a much longer article that I wrote at Forbes magazine many years ago about this very thing. But that's not really a big deal. The biggest deal, ladies and gentlemen, about Project 2025 is what I said. They are trying to rob the taxpayers and keep this poisonous, predatory loan scam alive. It's frankly disgusting what they're doing, the Republicans. And this, make no mistake, this is the Republicans. This is Donald Trump and his friends. You know, Betsy DeVos has been calling for the privatization of the student loan program for many, many years, up until and including today. These snakes like Lindsey Burke at the Heritage Foundation, they've been calling for all this nonsense that you see in the document for years. It's their wish list. But these people are tied very closely to Donald Trump. And, you know, Donald Trump can run, but he can't hide. And remember, as president, he was a disaster. Betsy DeVos canceled almost no loans. In fact, she was even threatened with prison time for not canceling loans that should have been canceled many years or decades ago. So the Republicans are just poisonous, evil, and terrible on student loans. And Project 2025 is really the embodiment of that. If you have student loans, there is no way on God's green earth, if you care about them, that you should ever be voting for any Republicans, certainly in the upcoming election, but probably far beyond. However, here's the big however, ladies and gentlemen. And if I can see your questions or comments on Twitter, I will happily respond to them. It's not always guaranteed. Here's the big however, guys, that the Republicans are evil. I'm sorry, it doesn't make the Democrats good. Yeah, sure, their rhetoric is 180 degrees different from the Republicans, but guys, I've been looking at this thing very, very closely over 20 years, and I can tell you that the Democrats also have no real intentions or desires of canceling more loans than they absolutely need to win elections, quite frankly. And, this problem really comes down to bankruptcy. I don't expect you to understand that if you're watching this live stream for the first time. But it turns out, if you think about it very carefully, you realize the removal of bankruptcy rights, constitutionally enshrined bankruptcy rights, lies at the heart of this whole thing. The Democrats have been promising to return bankruptcy rights for decades to these loans. Well, last session, they finally had a chance to do exactly that, and they completely failed to do it. They abandoned and betrayed us. They just did. And these loan cancellations that you see from Biden are just pittances, and they're not by the Higher Education Act. They're not by that section of the Higher Education Act that I just showed. So Biden and the Democrats are faking it, ladies and gentlemen, and there's really no reason for them not to, because the Republicans are so evil. But guys, no matter what your political stripes, neither party is fighting for us. And maybe that's the most profoundly true and important thing that I'll say today. We've got to push Kamala Harris, guys. Kamala Harris's backers are the reason that student loan cancellation by executive order never happened. Mary Swig, very rich woman in San Francisco, and Kamala's benefactor, her patron. She wrote a memo after our petition exploded, and when Biden started proposing canceling student loans by executive order, this Mary Swig woman wrote a memo. And within a couple of days, leading Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, Susan Rice, and others were parroting her call that no, the president cannot cancel student loans by executive order. So this was really not a good thing. The Democrats are not our friends, guys. We've got to push them. We've got to push both parties. This repayment, this on-ramp to repayment ends at the end of the summer. And the collection companies are going to be really drilling into us, guys. They're going to be really sinking their teeth into us. So we've got to be very aware of that. We've got to be very ready. It's going to get ugly. We've got to push both parties. So beware, guys. Don't fall in love with either party if you're smart, if you care about student loans. The most useful thing that I can think of for anybody to be doing, quite frankly, is number one, supporting my campaign, collingeforpresident.com, but also joining our Facebook group, our studentloanjustice.org, our website. But most of all, get into the habit of looking for and doing our daily actions. You can see our daily actions. I haven't updated them recently at our website, but the best place is probably to go to our Facebook group. I post those daily actions on a daily basis. I can also maybe put you on our email list if you want to see daily updates that way. But our daily actions are very smart, very cleverly conceived, designed, and very timely. And, we've got 1.2 million people in our group, guys. We truly do. And if even 1% of those people were doing our daily actions, it would make a dramatic difference. If 10% of the people in our group were doing our daily actions, student loans would probably cease to exist within about 5 to 6 months, guys. I kid you not. That's the kind of muscle that we on this group, believe it or not, have that we can flex. But that only matters when you make it matter. We only have that muscle when you flex that muscle with us. So bear that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. There's so much else going on right now. I don't really want to talk too much about all the politics going on. Things are very up in the air. Like, I'm not even convinced that Kamala Harris is going to wind up being the candidate coming out of the Democratic convention. The Republicans continue to be just completely vile and heinous. I think is probably a good word. But you can make your own. That's my own humble opinion. You may have a different opinion. As I said, we are a fiercely nonpartisan group, guys. Whatever your political stripes are, we are on your side. We're all in this together, guys. But frankly, Again, in my humble opinion, nobody should be voting for either a D or an R in this upcoming election. I think we've got to really break the power grip, the death grip, rather, that both of these parties have on us. RFK. If you hate me, then maybe RFK. But actually, you should probably love me if you have student loans. I am the only candidate in the field who will actually cancel student loans, replace the lending system, hold the colleges accountable, and set this nation free. We don't have to take this bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. The founding fathers are on our side. This is exactly the sort of tyranny that they wanted to prevent when they called for uniform bankruptcy rights in the Constitution. So toughen up, get ready to fight. Please support my campaign through the election. If you would, please do that. It would help. I hope that something I've said tonight has gotten through to some of you. I hope the veracity, which hopefully comes through in my voice, I hope that's coming through to you and you understand, I'm not doing this for my health or for wealth or any of those things. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. And a lot depends on whether this group succeeds or not, guys. We're really the only group in existence actually fighting this fight. I've looked at the other groups, guys. They're fake. They're fake. Just read through the lines. Be smarter than that. They're AstroTurf. They're corrupted in many, if not most cases. So hang in there. We got this. The good news is the loans absolutely will be canceled. My best estimate is that 85% of all student loan borrowers today are not making payments on their loans. 85%, guys. So apparently the people in Washington and Wall Street and Manhattan and San Francisco didn't get the memo. But the loans are done. The lending system is finished. But we want a good ending. We want a good ending, not a bad ending. It could go either way right now, guys, which is what makes you all the more important. You have no idea how important you could be. So hang in there, stick with us, help us fight the fight, and let's see what we can get done between now and Election Day. Good luck, Godspeed, God bless, and God bless America, everyone.